Hello and welcome to the Productive on Purpose podcast. Are you a high-achieving woman of color who struggles with imposter syndrome, procrastination, and self-sabotage? Are you tired of going to bed each night hoping that tomorrow will be a better day, only for it to be more of the same? Are you sick of empty affirmations that make you feel good but don't actually lead to change? And are you over being shamed and yelled at to do the work with no insight as to how to get it done? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then friends, you are in the right place. I am your host, Dr. Kimmy, an award-winning, board-certified physician and professor. I am also your purpose coach. Here on the POP Podcast, we are about actual transformation. This podcast will provide actionable strategies to help you walk in your purpose. Let's get started. Hello. What up, squad? Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Really quick, before we get started, I have a question for you. Are you on my email list? If you are not on my email list, you really probably want to be on it if you are interested in staying up to date on all the latest happenings in the Pop Squad. So anytime you go to the website, productivepurpose.com, there you'll see the form at the top so you can add your email address, or anytime you download any of our items, so the Planning for Procrastinators Guide, the Habit Building Masterclass, the Habit Building Workbook, any of that stuff, you will be able to be added to the emailing list at that point. The reason this is really crucial is because I have some exciting things in the pipeline that I am going to give my email squad access to first. You're in the squad. You're already in the squad if you listen. But squad members who are also on my email list will get first dibs on some of the upcoming opportunities. So go ahead and head on over to the website, productivepurpose.com, just so you can stay up to date on everything that's going on. Okay, guys, so we're here for another week, another episode, and I wanted to read another review. Please keep the reviews coming, guys. It's really crucial. It's one of the ways, like I always say, that Apple decides whether or not to put your podcast in front of other people. So if you would do me the favor of not only rating it, but also writing a message and leaving a review, that would be so helpful. So I want to read this review from Audrella8, and the title of the review is Life Altering. And she says, I too struggle with imposter syndrome. POP has allowed me to develop coping mechanisms to overcome this. Dr. Kimmy is amazing in the way she coaches and truly encourages people around her to walk in their purpose. #Pop Squad. Thank you, Audrella. I really appreciate that endorsement for you. I'm so glad that you know now that you're not alone in your imposter syndrome and that we can push through it together as a group, as a community. All of us in the Pop Squad encouraging each other. And if you really do want to get that one-on-one encouragement from not only me, but from other members of the squad, go ahead and check out the show notes. In the show notes, you will see a link where you can sign up to be a part of our private Facebook group. And I promise I don't spam you or anything, but it is a really good way to connect with other members of the squad. So yeah, head on over there, and that will be, I would love to welcome you into the squad that way. All right, guys. So today, this episode was inspired by my No Snooze crew. So I have my Pop Squad Facebook group, but even before I started that, before I even thought about doing a podcast, I had my No Snooze crew. So if you're listening to this and you're in the No Snooze crew, y'all are the original fam, okay? Y'all have been there since day 0, before even day 1 started. So the No Snooze crew is a group of us who are trying to encourage each other not to snooze. And why does this matter? So you hear me talking about not snoozing, but you might be thinking to yourself, I don't understand what the big deal is with snoozing. And trust me, I didn't get it either. And I used to snooze every day. Like I had snoozing down to a science. Down to a science, y'all. I knew exactly how much time to set my various alarms for, exactly how many alarms I should set and need to set before I'm going to be late for work. Right? Like it was a disaster. I was a complete disaster in this area when it came to snoozing. And I'm not exaggerating when I say I was a disaster. The snoozing that I was doing was negatively impacting my life. And I had no idea until I changed my life around. I got my snoozing under control and I started to see my life change. I kid you not. It was transformational. And that's why I started the No Snooze Crew Facebook group. And it is a private group, but that's why I started the group, because even long before the podcast, I said to myself, I want this feeling for other people. Like I want other people to feel how amazing you can feel when you get your mornings in order and keep your first morning promise to yourself. Transformational, life-changing. So I wanted to talk about it today. So I have the crew. And I have some members of the crew that were doing an amazing job in like keeping up with, not snoozing. And then a few of them, a few of us fell off after the holidays. And so one of the crew members said, like, what do I do? Like, help, like I need help. So whenever someone asks me for help, I figure there may be other people who are also struggling as well. So I wanted to record an episode on this. So today we're going to talk about why we snooze in the first place. Why, like, where does this even come from? Why are we doing it? How to overcome, right? Like actual practical steps for overcoming your snoozing. And and I want to give you like a little bit of a glimpse into my morning routine as well, so you can understand what I do in the morning now that I have changed into my no snooze lifestyle. Okay, so why do we snooze in the first place? So think back to the episode on the cave woman. Yes, it's the cave woman's fault again. I'm telling you, this cave woman, since she is us, right? She lives with us. She's a part of our unconscious mind. You're going to hear me talk about the cave woman a lot in this podcast. Like she is going to keep rearing her ugly head. And the thing about her is she will never fully go away. You will be able to tame her. And I like to say that I want to give you guys strategies to actually put her to sleep. All right. Tell her to have several seats, sit down somewhere, right? But she doesn't go away. The most we can do is like make her sit down or like put her to bed, but she's still there, right? So for those of you who have not listened to the Cave Woman episode, go back and listen to that episode 5. I want to say it's episode 5. Yeah, episode 5. So go back and listen to the Cave Woman episode on procrastination. But if you didn't listen to that and you're here now, welcome. And let me break it down for you. So really, really quick though. So if you want a more in-depth picture of the cave woman, go back to that episode. So the cave woman within is our unconscious mind, a part of our unconscious mind, our primitive brain, in fact. And back in the day, our ancestors, right? Like if you needed to go out to get food or to go hunting and gathering, right? The people who were spontaneous and didn't consider the consequences and just like left and went out, those people did not actually live to have offspring. We're the descendants of people that did a really good job of considering the weather, considering whether or not there were predators nearby, right? So like second guessing yourself was like adaptive. That was a good thing, right? Like you want to take some time, make sure you're actually going to live to procreate. Okay. Like that was the whole point. So we're the descendants of people who did that really, really well. So Our cave woman within is the primitive part of our brain that's always trying to keep us safe. Now, safety in this sense is more of like psychological safety. So protecting you from rejection, protecting you from disappointment, things like that. But it all stems from the same place of the cave woman trying to keep you inside the cave. Don't go out into that of the cave, sis. Don't go hunting. Don't go gathering, because you might not make it back home. Right. But now the cave woman's like, don't write that blog post. Don't put in for that promotion, because somebody might hurt your feelings. So in the context of the mornings, right? So it's nighttime. Just picture this, right? We've all had this happen. This was my life. Let me tell you about how I used to make this work or not work for me. So I would set my alarm the night before, and I'd have every intention. Tomorrow, things are going to be better. Tomorrow is a new day, and I am committed to making sure that I get up and do the things that I need to do throughout the day. That was the intention I set my alarm with most nights. There were some nights that I was just like, look, I already know I ain't getting up tomorrow, so I'm not even setting this alarm until 7. So that did happen. But most of the time, I had every intention of waking up and giving myself enough time. Now, granted, I will say this. When I say enough time, I was not one of those people that I was not like I am now. So I used to look at these people and just be like, why would you even do this? Like, I never understood why you'd want to wake up early. I was very proud of myself for waking up with just enough time to throw my clothes on, get my kids ready, and get out the door. Like, I used to say to myself, people who wake up and make themselves breakfast in the morning, like, wouldn't you rather be sleeping? I really didn't understand this mindset. I was like, why would you wake up an extra 20 minutes early just so you can eat? People who drink coffee in the morning just boggled my mind. I'm like, so you wake up early on purpose, and then you make yourself coffee, and then you drink it, and then you get ready? But you could just sleep for that extra 25-30 minutes. I really truly didn't get it, y'all. Like, I didn't get it. So even when I say I woke up to give myself enough time, like I set my alarm to give myself enough time, it was still enough time to like scramble but still be out the door and not be super late, right? Like, that was like how I set my alarm, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to set my alarm for 6 or 6:30 or whatever the time was. But inevitably, what would happen was I would wake up in the morning, my alarm would go off, and then what would I do? Snooze. I would hit the snooze button. Or I would turn off the alarm altogether, knowing that there were 6 other alarms coming, right? So I knew I needed to set my snooze button for 9 minutes. It had to be 9 minutes, or the alarms had to be 9 minutes apart. I convinced myself that 9 minutes was the appropriate amount of time to fall back into sleep and get enough of a little cat nap that I could wake up again 9 minutes later and probably be able to get up. The problem is I would set my alarm, it would go off, I would hit snooze, 9 minutes later, I would wake up and I would hit snooze again. 9 minutes later, I would wake up, I would hit snooze again. 9 minutes later, I would, like, it was a cycle. And when you're hitting snooze, right, you're telling yourself, oh, I need to sleep. But honestly, is your sleep really that restful? Number one, your sleep cannot be restful if you're only resting for 9 minutes. That is not enough time to achieve a full sleep cycle. If I had done 30 minutes, that probably would have been better. Just set the alarm for 30 minutes later and just commit to sleeping 30 minutes later. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm telling you to not snooze. But I'm saying back in my snoozing days, if I would have at least done that, that probably would have been better. But I'm waking up every 9 minutes. Every 9 minutes. That is actually, that contributes to me being more tired. That used to make me way more sleepy. It was just like nonstop, right? Like I would wake up after 9 minutes and feel worse, right? And then go back to sleep. So why did I hit the snooze button? So first of all, my cave woman made me hit the snooze button. So your cave woman wants to keep you in a steady state of equilibrium. Not too much calories expended, not too much energy expended, right? So our ancestors, the more you could just kind of like keep yourself on even keel, the more you were able to conserve your energy and stay alive, right? And so waking up in the morning is a change because you're resting, you're sleeping, and now I actually have to, number one, defy gravity and stand up. I have to defy gravity and actually get out of bed, but also change from that steady state of resting that I've been in for 8 hours to thinking, to, and you're thinking when you're sleeping, but to, actually making decisions and interacting with people. And as an introvert, like, the whole people thing, I'm like, do I really have to talk to people right now? Like, right. So my cave woman was like, all right, sis, just go back to sleep. And it feels good to sleep, right? Sleeping is adaptive. Sleeping is something we have to do. It's hard. And once you're up, here's the thing. Once you're up, you're fine. But it's just that change from sleep to wake that can be difficult. Right? So here's the thing though, right? And go back to episode 5 if you need some more clarity on this. But we have the cave woman, but then we have the rational part of us, right? The rational frontal lobe, higher order thinking part of us that is looking at everything that happens in the morning with lots of skepticism, right? Like the rational you is like, the rational you is the one that sets the alarm initially for the time that you want to wake up in the morning. And the cave woman is what turns it off and makes you go back to sleep, or turns it off and makes you scroll social media for 30 minutes before you get out of bed. Like the cave woman does that. But the rational part of you, right, has every intention every night and is just, has the best intentions. And God bless the rational you, right? Like, it's almost heartbreaking when you think about it, because the rational you is just like, I really want to achieve my goals and I want to start off the day and have a good day. So I am going to set my alarm for 5 a.m. and tomorrow's going to be the day. But then in the morning, when the cave woman turns off the alarm and, 6 times in a row, what happens? You wake up frazzled once you actually wake up, right? Because again, the only thing that can put the cave woman to bed is a deadline. So the deadline of I need to be at work, or the deadline of my kids actually have to catch the school bus or have to be in school by a certain time. That's the thing that eventually gets you out of bed. But what happens? You're scrambling, you're rushed, or at least I was rushed. I was frustrated. I was flustered. I'm on at a baseline mad at myself that I let this happen again. The same thing that happened yesterday and the day before, and that has been happening for years. I let it happen again. I didn't tame the cave woman. And now here I go again. I'm yelling at my kids, right? Because they're up late because, hello, it's my job to and my son, we're transitioning my son to getting up by himself. But when he was much younger, it's like, why am I mad at him that he's late when I'm the one that snoozed? Like, he didn't snooze. He got up when I came in like a banshee, yelling, get out of bed, right? Like, he had to pop up. He didn't have a choice, right? But I'm yelling at him, trying to get him to go faster. Meanwhile, that is also giving me guilt, mom guilt, right? Hashtag mom guilt, is never ending, right? I'm going to do a whole episode on mom guilt because Lord. But, so I'm yelling, I'm mad, I'm frazzled. I'm forgetting things. I'm just all over the place, right? And then on like a baseline level, I'm just like, here we go again. And my rational mind is like, Kim, like, why does this keep happening? Right? But then I finally drop off the kids, I make it to work or I make it to wherever I need to be. And then I sit down to like do the thing. You know what the thing is, right? The thing, the purpose work, the thing that I need to do to move my life forward. Right? But my rational mind is like looking back and thinking about the morning and how crazy that was. Okay. And the cave woman is sitting there chilling in the rational me's face, being like, yes, sis, this thing you're trying to do, this seems like something that's kind of hard. It kind of reminds me of like, oh, I don't know, waking up in the morning and you can't even do that. Your cave woman she be coming for me. Like my cave woman, she'll stand in my face and be like, but you couldn't even wake up in the morning and you're trying to do this. All this is happening in your unconscious mind. Like you might not be aware of it. Maybe you will now that you've heard this episode. But like typically, and when this was happening to me for years, this was all happening in my unconscious mind. But the cave woman is like throwing it in the rational use face. Like, sis, you can't do hard things. Like that whole getting up in the morning, that was hard. You didn't do that very well, did you? So this other hard like thing, this purpose work thing, this project thing, this also seems hard. It seems daunting. It seems like a lot. How about we just pull out Instagram and scroll? How about we just watch all of the stories on Instagram and then, oh, this person went live. Oh, but this person, I'll just watch this quick live video and then I'll get to work, right? You'll find all of the excuses in the world. And the cave woman will literally beat down the rational you to the point that rational Dr. Kimmy used to believe that it was true that I could not do hard things because, well, I started the day not doing something that was hard. I gave in to the cave woman each and every time. So I didn't even believe that I could do those things. And as much as I wanted to do it, as much as I wanted to like tell the cave woman to have a seat, she was right. She was right. I could not do hard things. I started off the day doing something like avoiding the hard thing, that getting up in the morning. Not only that, but imagine you have a friend that keeps making promises to you, but then keeps breaking it, right? Like eventually you're like, well, that person is not my friend, or you start to not even trust what they say, right? So I would set that alarm every night. And part of me knew I wasn't going to get up. I knew, as much as I would give myself the affirmation, rah-rah pep talk of, yes, tomorrow's another day and I am going to achieve my goals and I am going to do all of the things. Like as much as I would give myself that pep talk every night when I set my alarm, I knew I wasn't going to wake up. I had no track record of waking up. What would make tomorrow different? The cave woman was right, y'all. She was right. I couldn't do hard things. And then it was just a cycle, because then I would pull out social media, scroll. That would put me behind, right? And then the next thing I have to do, now I have that other thing I should have done, plus the next thing. So I would delay that. So it was just like this perpetual cycle of anxiety and avoidance, which we talked about last episode, right? When we talked about perfectionism. And so it was a cycle. I will tell you, the first time I realized that I needed to stop snoozing was when I learned about the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins. And she talks about a situation where her life was basically falling apart and she would wake up every morning and snooze her life away, right? And once she stopped snoozing, that's when she got her life together. Now, the focus of her book is not on not snoozing. The focus of her book is on the 5-second rule, which is a way to overcome those mental blocks that you have. And I have a whole episode coming up on the 5-second rule and other strategies like it that you can use. And we're going to talk about it later on in this episode too. But what stood out to me when I learned about Mel and when I learned about the 5-second rule was that the first thing she got a handle on in her life was her snoozing. That's the very first thing she tackled. And then everything else came from there. Everything else came from there. So I made it a point. I was like, okay, I need to stop snoozing. And I want to tell you guys, right, just to give yourself some grace in this area, I set a goal. So I learned about the 5-second rule in about March of 2018. I didn't stop consistently snoozing until the summer of 2019. So it took me over a year to like get in a habit of not snoozing. Now, I'm doing this podcast so that it can be easier for you. So I'm hoping it doesn't take you a year to get a handle on it, but just give yourself some grace. It's going to be a process. If it's something that you've struggled with for some time, it's going to be a process. So really quick, before we talk about how to overcome snoozing, I want to define snoozing, not like in a real sense, because I didn't look up the definition, but how I define snoozing, right? Because in the crew, in the community on Facebook, sometimes people kind of say this and they'll say, I didn't snooze, but I went back to sleep. Or they'll say, I didn't snooze, but I scrolled social media for an hour before I got up. I define all of those things as snoozing. So I define snoozing as hitting the snooze button, sleeping for an interval of time, and then waking up again and whatever, right? Even if you do that once, that's snoozing. I define snoozing as turning off the alarm, going back to sleep, and then waking up in a panic like an hour later. I used to do that too, by the way, very often. But I define that as snoozing. And I also define, interestingly, I define snoozing as setting your alarm, waking up, but then scrolling social media for however much time, or just like laying in bed. Anything. I define snoozing as anything that's delaying the day. If you delay the day, you're snoozing. And the reason you're doing it, it's totally understandable. But like I said, it's because getting up is hard. And your body, your cave woman, wants to keep you comfortable and keep you in a steady state of equilibrium. So, but I define all of those things as snoozing. So I'm hoping that I can help you address all of that. Now, I will say it's sort of a spectrum. So if you at least wake up and you're on social media scrolling, if that's better than what you've done before, I want to give you, give yourself some credit. I want you to give yourself some credit for that. You've still snoozed, but you're moving in the right direction. The key is to get up, get out of bed with intention every day. But it's a process and it's going to take you some time to get there. Again, I never want to be one of those people that is yelling at you to do this, do that, do the work, blah, 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 whatever. Give yourself some grace, sis. I was you. I still am you. I, in fact, have to stay on top of my game or else I'm going to fall off. Okay. So I never, ever, ever want you to feel like I'm beating you up. I want you to give yourself some grace, but at the same time, I'm going to be in your ear like, girl, you better get up, stop snoozing, get up. But give yourself some grace in the meantime as well. Okay. So that's how I define snoozing. So I would like to shift us, from snoozing to keeping our morning promise to ourselves. Think of your alarm as a promise that you're making to yourself. And when you break the first promise that you've made to yourself for the day, it's hard to trust yourself to do further hard things. So I like to say confidence is a muscle, right? Every time you turn off your snooze alarm, you turn off your alarm and you get out of bed, you're doing 1 rep, right? It's a muscle that you have to build up over time. And each time you turn off the alarm and get out of bed and stop delaying your day, that's 1 rep in the right direction. So this is a quote that when I read this, I was like, Kim, girl, you wrote this? I was impressed with myself. But this is a quote that I wrote in my blog. You can still find some of my our blog posts. They're all on the website, productivepurpose.com. But I was reading the blog post that I wrote around this issue of keeping your morning promise to yourself. And this was the quote that I wrote. The promises that you keep to yourself in the morning create goodwill in your brain for the rest of the day. I was like, ooh, child, that's a good quote. That is good, girl. That is a good one. And it's true, right? Like the promises you keep to yourself. When a friend promises you that they're going to come pick you up and then they do it, that creates goodwill toward that friend, right? But if your friend is promising to pick you up, but then they never actually come, then you're probably like, girl, bye, right? Like that is not going to create goodwill. So you have to convince the rational you that you can do hard things. The cave woman is going to be in your ear trying to tell you you can't, but here's a way to get her to have several seats. Number one, be realistic, right? So if you decide tomorrow, so if you're listening to this on a Monday and you're like, tomorrow's the day, Tuesday's the day, and you've been snoozing for a long time and you convince yourself that tomorrow I am going to wake up at 4 a.m. Now, you usually wake up at 7 and then snooze 6 times. But for some way, magically tomorrow, you're going to wake up at 4. You are not going to be successful. You're just not. Like, let's just keep it real and be 100. You're not going to be successful. The first time I stopped snoozing, all I did was I set my alarm for that last time that I would have snoozed for before I started scrambling. So the first day I stopped snoozing was still a crazy day, but it was still less crazy because I had kept that promise to myself. So let me give you an example. If you set your alarm for 6, but you don't actually get out of bed until 6:45, then tomorrow set your alarm for 6:45. You'll eventually move it back and you'll eventually develop the morning routine that's inspired, that gets you out of bed earlier. But for now, the best thing you can do for yourself is to just stop snoozing. So if you can just be realistic, just be real with yourself and say, when can I reasonably get up and actually feel well rested, right? So set your alarm for the latest time that you typically snooze until. That's the first thing. So all this is happening at night, right? So the night before is really going to be what sets you up for success the next day. So the second thing that I did was I started to realize I needed to develop a night routine in order to get my behind in bed early. And something I realized, and this is a little bit of an aside, and it's going to sound kind of crazy, but I had to work with my therapist on this for a while. It was so hard for me to get to bed on time because I was in such a bad place, such a stuck place, that I didn't even feel like I deserved to sleep well because I wasted my entire day, right? Like my day was spent waking up, snoozing, scrambling, yelling at the kids, being late, sometimes being frazzled, not even, if you listen to my, episode 1 and episode 2, sometimes not even knowing where I'm supposed to be, not having a plan for the day, right? So when the day goes poorly like that and your whole day is just kind of a mess, at least for me, I would feel guilty about going to bed, right? I'd feel like I didn't deserve this sleep. What do you mean you want to go to bed and feel well rested? You don't deserve this. You didn't do anything today meaningful, right? You didn't walk in your purpose today, Kim. So how dare you try to go to sleep at 9 o'clock? What? And so I would almost, this sounds so crazy. you're not crazy if you're doing this. I'm saying it sounds crazy because I'm in a different place now. That it's hard for me to it it pains me is what I should say. It pains me to think that this is how I used to think. But this is how I used to think. I would almost punish myself for the bad day I had by staying up late. So I am someone that thrives on sleep. So if you're not that type of person, then staying up late might not be a punishment for you. But like for me, I know I need my rest. I do. And so I would punish myself, right, by staying up. And I didn't have the vocabulary to say, Kim, you're punishing yourself now. Like all of this came out in therapy. I realized my therapist, she was like, well, why can't you just go to bed? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't. And I had to do some deep work to realize that I felt like I did not deserve to go to sleep because my day was so like haphazard and just all over the place and was a mess that I didn't even feel like I deserved sleep. So it started off with me having to do some work with my therapist, right? But it became a cycle. So I started with not snoozing. Not snoozing gave me more energy and gave me a better day. And then that's what helped me to develop the night routine because then I did actually believe that I deserved it. So that's why I'm saying to start with being realistic and setting your alarm for that later time, even though you're going to be like, but I'm still going to be rushed. You're probably going to be rushed, but I promise you're still going to have a better day because not punishing your brain by sleeping in like 5 to 9 minute increments, you're already going to wake up and have way more energy. Plus the fact that you kept your promise to yourself, just that little fact is going to give you momentum throughout the day. Just trust me. Get in the habit of not snoozing. That's the first step by being realistic, right? And then you can develop that night routine. Then you can develop the routine that you need to put in place to make sure that you get to bed with enough time so that you can start to set your alarm earlier and earlier. And what I tell people in the crew, in this No Snooze crew, is to just set it in 15-minute increments. So you start off at 6:45, right? Because that's what you used to snooze until, and you move it back to 6:30, right? Move it back to 6:30. Right? So 15 minutes earlier, but you have to have a reason to be getting out of bed. So that is the next step, right? You have to have a reason to be getting out of bed. You cannot, it's very difficult when you wake up and you're like, okay, I'm up, right? Like, oh, and then what, right? So it's much easier when you have something to look forward to. And that's where your morning routine comes into play. So again, first, you set your alarm, you're realistic, you get out of the habit of snoozing, then you create your night routine, and then you create your morning routine. You got to create your night routine first so you can actually get to bed on time. And then you start to move the needle and move the alarm clock earlier. And then you create your morning routine to help you and give you a reason to actually wake up. So I want to quickly tell you about my morning routine. So I wake up every day at 4:30. You're like, what? Y'all, if I can do this, I promise you, you can. Now, I'm not saying you need to wake up at 4:30. My goals need me to wake up at 4:30 because, and the fact that I have 2 kids and how far I live from my job, like all of that are reasons I need to wake up at 4:30. Plus I'm trying to build a brand and a business and do this podcast and all of that stuff. So that's why I wake up at 4:30. It doesn't have to be 4:30 for you. This is just, how I have developed my morning routine. And now it's gotten to the point, and I know this sounds crazy because I used to be the person who didn't even understand how someone could wake up in the morning and make themselves breakfast. Okay. So I am to the point now that if I decide to sleep in, I regret it. So I decided to sleep in on Sunday this past Sunday, because I just was like, I need to catch up on my sleep. I kind of felt like I was coming down with something and I wanted to really catch up and make sure that I got enough sleep. And my kids went to bed late the night before. So I slept in. And while I felt well rested in the morning, I didn't snooze when I woke up, right? So I felt well rested. I missed my morning time. I missed that time that I get to just spend by myself, especially if you're an introvert. It is so beautiful to wake up in the morning before anyone else, right? Like my kids are not like in my face. And I love my husband, but my husband's an extrovert and I'm an introvert. So when he wakes up in the morning, the way he gets his energy is by communicating. But I'm an introvert, so I get energy from within by being alone. And so when I used to wake up, and then the first thing I would have to do is like interact with my kids or, my husband. As much as I love those people, those are my people, right? I love them to life. I love them like, with all of me. I didn't understand why I would get to work and feel so drained. It's because I'm an introvert and it has nothing to do with them. It's just I gain my energy by being alone. That's how I recharge my battery. So I wake up and I wake up at 4:30. The whole world is quiet. Ain't nobody trying to be awake up at 4:30 unless you're like working third shift, right? Like ain't nobody trying to be awake. So the neighborhood is quiet. Nobody's like calling me. Not that they could anyway, because I keep my phone on do not disturb. But like everything is silent. So the night before, I make my coffee. So I set my coffee to go off, to start brewing at 4:30. So by the time I come downstairs, my coffee is ready. I pour my coffee, I make my coffee, and come in my office. I light my candle, and I do my gratitude prayer routine. And so I can talk about this a little bit later. I don't want to go into it for the sake of time right now, but I write down all the things that I'm thankful for. Big things and little things. I don't have an exact number. I just write the things I'm grateful for until I feel that I've said the things I'm grateful for that day. And then I write out my prayers and I write out certain scriptures that speak to me. And I read through my Bible and or a devotional. And that usually takes about 20 to 30 minutes until around 5 o'clock. And then that's when I start working on my business. And because I am a morning person, let me define that. I don't really like the term morning person because it kind of like pits two people against each other, like the people who thrive in the morning and then the people who thrive more at night. And then so my night owls will be like, well, I'm not doing that whole no snooze thing. I'm not a morning person. I believe no snooze life is for everyone, no matter if you're a night owl or not. Some people just work better at night. They get creativity at night. I tend to get more creative in the morning. So that's how I'm defining morning person. But everyone can wake up with intention every day. So don't like turn off this podcast and be like, well, I'm a night owl, so none of that applies to me. No, because I was a morning person who was still snoozing my life away. So I wasn't living up to this like moniker of morning person, right? So I just think morning person is more of when you tend to get your creativity. My husband is a night owl. He's a night owl. He could stay up all night and like that's when he does his best work. But he has acknowledged to me that when he wakes up with intention and keeps his morning promise to himself in the morning and doesn't snooze, he has a better day also, even though he's a night owl. So I just say that to say that even if you're not a morning person, you can still keep your first morning promise to yourself. And in fact, you should, because it's going to give you more energy and it's going to set the tone for the entire day. So I work on my business from like 5:10 or so until 6 o'clock. And at 6 o'clock, it's go time. That's when I need to wake up my kids. We moved a little bit farther away from the schools where my kids go to now. So it requires that I wake up a little bit earlier. And I need to do some more things to kind of refine my morning routine and my night routine, because if I made breakfast for my kids the night before, I would not have to start doing breakfast at 6 a.m. I could do it the night before and just heat something up. So I'm still like getting that together. Go back to my episode on perfectionism, right? So like I've been like planning this whole like, bulk meal prep, breakfast prep thing, and I just haven't bitten the bullet and done it yet, but it's coming. It's coming. So, yeah, so that's what I do in the morning. That's just like a brief overview, but when you have something, I call it my inspired morning promise routine. It makes me feel like I have something to look forward to. I love the mornings. I love it. Now I don't understand how I used to wake up and just go, right? I love just being able to wake up and have a moment to myself. And like I said, I used to be one of those people that thought people like me, the current me, were crazy bananas, right? Like, what do you, girl, you just sleep. Like, what? But I promise you guys, it's made all the difference. So I want to tell you that Mel Robbins was right. When I developed my inspired morning promise routine and started keeping my morning promise to myself, that's when all the pieces fell in place. That's when everything else in my life shifted. I started to be able to actually do the things that I said I was going to do because my rational me started to believe that I could do it. Because look at you, sis, doing that hard thing every morning. Oh, you trying to do this other hard thing? I hear you. You could do it. You still have to break it down, put it on paper, make it bite-sized. All the things I talk about all the time, you still have to do that, or else here comes cave woman, right? So you still have to do those things. But I started to believe and have confidence in myself. I started to build that confidence muscle. And you're hearing my voice today on this podcast because of that. 100%. If I were still snoozing and delaying my day and talking myself out of waking up in the morning, I could not be the type of person that starts a company, starts something like a podcast, like unfathomable. And, it took me a long time to get to the point. So I told you it took me over a year to get to the point of being able to not snooze. But the changes I made since stop being snoozing until now have been like rapid fire. So I stopped snoozing the summer of 2019. I would have to flip back through my bullet journal to see exactly when the transformation happened. But it was around, I would say, July. And like, boom, boom, boom. Like literally my life changed. I cannot stress enough how just keeping your promise to yourself in the morning makes all the difference in the world, guys. So if you want to join us inside the No Snooze crew, let's say you're in the pop squad and you're like, oh, but I need more inspiration on this like no snooze thing. Go ahead and check the link in the bio. Well, you can find it in my Instagram bio too, but check out the show notes for today's episode so that you can join the No Snooze crew. I even have t-shirts. I had them on the site, on my old site, but I changed my site. So I need to re-add the t-shirts. If you guys would be interested in No Snooze Crew t-shirts, let me know because I'll put them back up on the site. So a few people have bought them before I took them down. But yeah, I love my No Snooze Crew t-shirt. So yeah, I would love to get that to you if you're interested. Yeah, but join us in the No Snooze Crew and take those steps, right? And let me know how it goes. Shoot me an email, send me a DM on social. Let me know how it goes. Join the crew, post in there. I'm really, really interested to know how it goes, like how it is when you start implementing these practices and how you feel. I had a friend who I've been trying to convince her to stop snoozing, to just try it for one day and let me know how she feels. And she did it last week and she was like, I don't understand why I have so much energy. I'm telling you, it will give you an energy boost. You'll feel like you just drank a 5-hour energy drink because you are like abusing your brain when you go back to sleep for these little naps. Like you can't achieve a full sleep cycle. So it makes you more tired. And then also when you keep your morning promise to yourself, you're less likely to beat yourself up. It just overall gives you more energy for the day. So try it out. Let me know what you guys think, right? I would love to hear if not snoozing is changing your life the way it's changed mine. All right, y'all. I would love to hear from you. Shoot me a DM, like I said, and leave a review of the podcast. All right, guys, it's been real. Have a blessed week. Peace and love. Thank you for listening to the Productive on Purpose podcast. Now, take the next step. Head on over to www.productivepurpose.com to download your free Planning for Procrastinators workbook. It's time to start walking in our purpose, y'all. I'll catch you on the next episode.